Michael. It is so great to see you this morning. Welcome to the LoveWorks Dreamers and Doers podcast. Believe it or not, we're bringing you episode number 43. If there's one thing that we know here at LoveWorks is there is definitely not a shortage of great podcasts for you to listen to. In fact, oftentimes we'll actually bring up some of our favorites for you to continue to learn and grow. But again, thank you for choosing Dreamers and Doers. We always like to remind you that it's at LoveWorks that we believe that you are never too young to be a big dreamer and you're never too old to get started working on your dream.
For sure. And our hope with Dreamers and Doers is that each week our special guest is going to connect with you wherever you find yourself today, and they're going to inspire you to become the best version of yourself. And so, Michael, one of the things that we love to do around here so that we can become the best version of ourselves is actually picking our word of the year. And last week we got to share what our words were. But as we know, sometimes based on how people can kind of keep their word or their resolution in front of them.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've even received just some feedback about just the idea of having a word. And who knows, this could be just something for you to consider this new year as you start out a brand new, fresh year. You've often heard of setting New Year's resolutions and goals, and we'd encourage you to do that. But this idea of one word, I think, is pretty special because it's a little bit different. And an approach that I just want to just share first, Carolyn, is how we go about just really identifying, or at least me personally identifying, because it's a little bit different. And an approach that I just want to just share first, Carolyn, is how we go about just really identifying, or at least me personally identifying my word of the year. And I like to kind of say it this way. I look in and then I look out. So it's up, it's in, and it's out. And so for me, it starts towards the end of a year. Well, I'll begin to look up. And for me, that could involve just my prayer life and my faith, meditation and thinking through, and really just finding just that place of just quiet and peace, which of course, in just the pace of life we're living in can be hard. And then I like to look inward. And for me, it's a year in review. And I'm just looking back as far back as I can remember, from first quarter to last quarter, and just evaluating just the year itself. And so doing an inward reflection and then begin to look outward. And here's where I think is pretty special about the one word idea, is that it's not necessarily something that's meant to get us to do more, but it's more about thinking about who do we want to become this year? What do we want to work towards? And so for me, it happened in December, and I'm grateful for Brooke Brown, an older book of hers, but more relevant today than I think ever before, work towards. And so for me, it happened in December, and I'm grateful for Brooke Brown, an older book of hers, but more relevant today than I think ever before, called Gifts of Imperfection. And so during my inward part of this process, I was reading that book, and Brooke Brown talks a lot about wholeheartedness. And so that's what I gravitated towards. And so I have that word in my phone, and I spend just 5 minutes. So I look at my notes in my phone, Carolyn, each morning, and that's where I'll do a review of just a definition of wholeheartedness. And then the cool thing is that it lasts all year, so I'm not necessarily disappointed if I don't hit such and such goal or deadline by, say, January 14th, but I have the whole year to discover what that word is meant to be for me. So that's just a little bit more just about the background and how I use it. How about you, Carolyn?
So Michael, in a similar way, I also spent some time at the end of the year trying to come up with a word, and also looking, of course, upward and inward. And I think you're right. It definitely boils down to like, who's that person that you want to become? And so for me, that word was steward. And so wanting to become a better steward of my finances, my time, and also with my relationships. And so for this, it was partially me setting some things up and some goals, but also knowing that it's not all going to happen January 1st, 2021. And that each of the goals that I have lined out for those three things isn't going to start right from the very get-go, but rather kind of easing into it and starting smaller habits so that I'm able to, by the end of the year, feel like I've really lived into that word, that I am a steward. And it's not really based off of, okay, I hit this check mark, or I hit this goal, but rather starting to just become the person that I envision with that word.
Yeah, that's good. No, you're living into it. And I mean, let's just be honest. And again, our 2020, each of our 2020s are of course different. Some more challenging than others, but let's be honest, it was a difficult, hard year. And many of us were just ready at the very least just to turn the calendar, from 2020 to 2021. But statistics will even say that by the third week, of January, that most individuals have already given up on that New Year's resolutions or goal. So we hope that this encourages you just in your personal growth journey. So we'd also like to hear what you're doing to kick off 2021. So in the chat box below, it doesn't have to be one word. We're just encouraging with something that has worked for us. If it happens to be a New Year's resolution or a big goal or small goal that you're working on, please drop that in the comment box below.
That's a perfect time for our roll call. So if you're out there, definitely comment and answer our question of the day. And today's question of the day is a fun one. It is, who was a teacher that made a difference in your life? Michael?
Hint in regard to potentially the direction we're going to go in our Dreamer and Doer conversation today. So Carolyn, I'll just jump in just real quick on this one. I've had lots of teachers over the years, and I jotted down a list of names, but the one that rose to the top, and it didn't necessarily have to do with anything. He taught me a lot educationally in the classroom, so don't get me wrong, but math was a particularly hard subject for me, and he knew that right away. And so his name is Mr. Sunquist. So if you're watching this, give us a thumbs up emoji or say hi. But he found a common ground, and it was he and I's love for the Miami Dolphins football team. And I'll tell you, him finding that common ground I didn't want to do math, but it really challenged me to bring my best into the classroom that I could, and really made a difference even to this day.
Oh, I love that. One of the teachers that really came to my memories was Mrs. Jones. She was my 8th grade teacher. And she was, I would say, a little old school in the sense that we were only allowed to ever write in cursive, in pen, and only on college lined paper. But she was fanatical about proper grammar, and also loved to educate us about like uncommonly used words. And so I would say she instilled definitely a passion in that for me. I love my penmanship and whatnot. So, but yeah, I think it's been a lasting impact of Mrs. Jones for sure.
You do have some amazing penmanship. I can definitely tell the difference that she made. We definitely love and appreciate our teachers so much. So if you have a teacher, we know you do, drop their name in the comment box below. We'd love to hear the impact that they made in your lives. Well, I know I'm ready. Carolyn, you are ready. We are certainly going to be inspired by today's special guest. I always like to remind you just about our format, about Dreamers and Doers, that we feel makes it unique, that we get a chance to hear about their dream story. And what I like about this start of the interview is that we don't spend as much focus necessarily talking about what they're doing today as we do talking about what it took to get to the interview. Is that we don't spend as much focus necessarily talking about what they're doing today as we do talking about what it took to get to the person that they are today, and what that journey looked like, and some of the challenges and perhaps obstacles and adversity that they encountered along the way. And we hope that it's going to encourage you to continue taking steps forward to being from the person you are today to the person that you want.
Comments will send you a prize directly to your house. The question is, what country statistically gives the most homework? What country? I'm sure a lot of our students are wanting to say the US, of course. No. Which country statistically gives the most homework?
Especially with all this new virtual learning that we're doing. So drop that in the chat box below. Let's get to it, and let's meet our Dreamer and Doer. Her name is Brooke Brown.
Brooke Brown is a teacher with 15 years of experience, but she's also the founder of Teach Outside the Box. She specializes in all things create experiences for students in innovative ways so that she's able to create memorable and engaging learning experiences. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Great to see you. We are so excited to have you on this morning, Brooke.
I am so excited to be, and I just listening to your conversations about the teachers that have impacted you. I hope you know those teachers still think of you too. The impact it goes two ways, and it's just, that's the best part about being a teacher, is knowing how far that impact stretches. So.
Oh, that's
Appreciate you saying that. And I know that you have had a multitude of students over the years that have circled back around and shared with you the type of impact that you had inside the classroom. So I'm so excited for us to get into that in our conversation today.
Me too. The impact, the teachers and the students that come back, I've had, seeing kids graduate, seeing kids, email me later on that they are now a teacher, and even because of the impact that maybe I made on them in the classroom, we are your biggest fans, no matter how old you get. And once you're our kids, you're always our kids. I hope that you know that.
We are lucky and fortunate to have you on this morning, especially with the kickoff to a brand new school semester. So thank you for taking the time.
Yes, here we go again. We are keeping on. No matter if you're virtual or in person, we are over the hump of the halfway through the school year, and we're excited to keep going.
Sweet. So Brooke, a question we love to kick off the interview with is, do you consider yourself more of a natural dreamer or a doer?
A doer. And part of that has just been habits that I've established kind of over the course of my life, kind of out of necessity. I was never one of those kids that school came naturally to, or maybe even with regards to dance or sports. I did really well in those things, but I mean, a lot of people don't know that so much hard work has to go on behind the scenes. And I don't want to say that practice makes perfect, but practice definitely improves your chances of success in life. And that's something that I learned from a very young age. My parents, of course, had very high expectations of me as well, in a very loving home environment. So that was a big part of that too. But I do think that hard work pays off. I think doing is how things get done. I'm not necessarily a perfectionist. I don't consider myself that much sometimes, but I am one who likes to go above and beyond, doing everything that I have in the tank, whether it comes to teaching or whether it comes to my business. That's something that kind of transferred young has really helped me throughout my life. And of course I have dreams. Of course I have goals. That's one of my favorite things to do. You were talking about your one little word at the beginning of every year. That is something that I always have in my mind too. But I know at the end of the day that I'm the one who has to do the work to make that dream a reality.
That is good, Brooke.
So I relate to that. Brooke, yeah. Do you happen to have a word or a resolution or goal, or maybe something else that you do to really just prime yourself and get ready for a new year?
So this year is different than other years. And so I joked on social media that my word is keep on keeping on, one giant word, because it is. It's kind of one foot in front of the other type year. And I'm teaching virtually this year, which has been a wonderful experience for me to reach many children. But I, of course, desperately miss my classroom and teaching in person, and, wanting to get back to the things that bring more joys into teaching and learning. I want to get back to that, and I know that it's coming. I just got to keep on keeping on, and try to keep a positive attitude and try to impact as many kids as I can in the virtual setting this year.
Right. Well, we know it's evident in the success that you're seeing with Teach Outside the Box, and we're going to get into that in just a little bit of how hard you do work. But you mentioned earlier just your parents and when you were younger. So do you mind just taking us back just a few years and talk with us a little bit about Brooke Brown and what childhood was like growing up?
Absolutely. My parents are, in my opinion, the greatest parents in the world. I know that not many people are lucky enough to say that, but expectations of me and my sister. Both of my parents still to this day have very clear qualities that I wanted to emulate, even as a child. My dad is definitely a doer, just like me, extremely type A, extremely organized, very hardworking. He's actually the accountant for my business, thank goodness. And my mom is incredibly loving and compassionate. She worked for hospice. She was in social work. She modeled that importance of helping others whenever possible and treating people with kindness and respect. And both my parents kind of encouraged me to do the most good that I can with my life. And I can't think of any other profession that could do so much good is teaching. And my third grade teacher, Miss Sutton, was the one that inspired me to be a teacher. And she was another person that I emulated. I wanted to be able to impact kids in the way that she did. And what's crazy, over the years, I've hoped that I could reach out to her in some way and make some sort of connection. And I don't know where she is now. She was a first-year teacher. She was just getting her feet wet too, but for some reason, that was the year that flipped the switch for me. And I knew this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And, I have my degree in administration. If I would like to go, principal route someday, I have that ready. But part of me is just so attached to being with kids, and I can't imagine not spending my days with them. And that is something that I'm very lucky that I get to do.
That's awesome. Brooke, I know you had mentioned, school did not come as easily for you. And some people may say it's a little ironic that now you're a teacher, right? Like, you're an educator. But like, how would you want to encourage that student who maybe doesn't pick things up as easily, or maybe, sees like their goal, they've identified, they want to be, say, like in your case, a teacher, but it's like, the school doesn't come that easily for me. And
I absolutely, and my older sister was one that school came, walk in, listen to a lecture, and ace the exam the next day. They just are natural learners. They absorb knowledge. I was never one of those kids. I had to work really hard to get the grades that I did. And part of that is practicing and learning a system of time management and study strategies, and almost over preparing for situations. That is something that I kind of learned to do at a young age. My mom was the one that taught me just really simple study habits, like flashcards and outlines, mnemonics, note-taking strategies, and things like that. But checklists and calendars are something. I had a paper agenda from the time I was in middle school, and everything had to be written in my agenda or my to-do list. Now I use Google Keep. Now it's one of my favorite, or my phone. You were talking about your notes section in your phone. That's where I keep all my to-dos and all my lists. But as far as keeping track of all the things, that's one of the hardest parts of just life, right? Not being a student and then growing up and having a job one day. And if you can stay on top of things, not procrastinating till the very last minute, that is something that is going to lead you to success in school, in life, and later on. So like, even for this podcast, for example, I printed out notes a couple of days ago. I went over them a couple of times before today. That's how I function. I over prepare for things. And then when things happen, when I get to them, then I'm a little bit more relaxed. I know that I did everything I could to prepare, to kind of give that above and beyond that I know is kind of a part of who I am. So for example, if you have a test on Friday, don't procrastinate and try to study the night before. Chunk it into, I'm going to study this chapter. Then you get to check it off when you're done. That's the great part about it. It feels you've accomplished something. Tuesday, you study a little bit more. And that's something that, especially in college, when your parents aren't there to put them on you, right, to study and to keep things in line, that's something that I expect of you. But time management and study strategies, you do not have to have these natural abilities and talents in certain subject areas, but it will set you up to be successful if you try to gain those skills now.
Brooke, I think that is very freeing that you just said you don't have to have that naturally per se. I wish I could have heard this at the age of 16. Could have been an absolute game changer. And I think, didn't you say but at least try, at least begin to take a step. And I would say that I probably fought through the procrastination bug. It wasn't until college, I would say, that I started beginning to figure it out and begin to procrastinate less. And so even just hearing that, I think would have been just so freeing for me. Brooke, we want to begin to make a segue into hearing about Teach Outside the Box. And you have had, I know, a huge impact, not only with students that are a part of your classroom, now virtually, but also to just helping other teachers. And teachers, let's be honest, we believe here at Lover, they are superheroes. They wear so many hats, as an educator. And that could range from being someone who grades paper to being a comforter, to that particular student that's having a tough day, a mediator. Could you tell us a little bit about going back to the beginning about why and how you ended up starting Teach Outside the Box and sharing a little bit more about the resources and the kits?
Absolutely. So Teach Outside the Box is what I like to call a beautiful accident. Most teachers have second or even third jobs. This is my 17th year of teaching. I've always had some sort of summer job, something in the evenings, just to earn enough to help support my family a little bit better. It's something that's kind of unfortunate, but it's something that I've always had the habit of doing. And I've always loved creating my own materials and lessons for my students. I talked about that above and beyond. I always try to find ways to make lessons more fun, more engaging, taking something that is already in the curriculum and giving it my own personal twist that will make it more fun for my students. And in 2013, there was this up and coming website called Teachers Pay Teachers. And it is an open marketplace where teachers can post any of their original materials, their lesson plans, printables, task cards, anything that goes along with a particular unit or a lesson, anything that is originally created by teachers. And it was my husband who actually kind of discovered it and encouraged. He said, "You have all these things that you create on your own anyway. Let's upload them to this website and see how they do." So I called my store Teach Outside the Box. That is because I am a big proponent of thinking creatively and teaching, kind of taking things outside of the lesson plan, stepping outside of those standards and lesson plans and really meeting kids where they are. And I love to put hands-on elements, play, making learning more fun and engaging for students. So I called my store Teach Outside the Box. A couple of weeks after I posted my first product, I made an 85-cent sale. Someone had bought a $1 resource of mine, and you would have thought it was $1 million. I could not believe, I was so honored that another teacher would want to use my work with her own student. That's the beauty of it. Is she's not just buying it for herself. She trusts it enough to use it with her class of students. And to me, that type of reward was something I hadn't experienced before. And that was kind of the spark and the hook that kind of kept me going. So after that, I started developing STEM resources for elementary students because at that time there was very little out there for STEM. And that very quickly took off and became what I was known for. STEM, maker spaces, coding, kind of everything that you know and love about school now, that wasn't really a thing in early childhood several years ago. And that's something that I got to kind of be a part of that movement. So the greatest part about my business, I get the best of both worlds for the first time in a very long time. I love creating. It brings me so much joy. It doesn't feel like a job. Creating is helping teachers. It is a outlet of joy for me. And I can also teach and feed my passion with my students there. And then I can also better financially support my family. I can be a better mom and I can be a better wife. So I finally feel like I've struck not a perfect balance, but a balance that makes my life very fulfilled and happy. And Teach Outside the Box has been a big part of that.
Brooke, that's so good. Just hearing the story of, you're getting to share resources, which activates you in your heart in a different way, is so neat. I think in a different way that you get to share and still become very popular. We wanted to ask you, social media has been a really great way for teachers even to connect and share these ideas. And so, how do you make sure that you have the proper balance between social media and even your personal life?
That is a great question. And it's because I do believe boundaries, especially with social media, are so important. And the hard thing is it's a bit of a blessing and a bit of a curse because I do need social media to run my business successfully. It is the reason that it is what it is because of the connections that I've been able to make online during the years. But it can also consume you personally if you let it. My husband calls it doom scrolling. He'll check it. Are you doom scrolling? And because it will, you'll at that time being a better mom to my children or actually working on a product, or there are so many things that it takes away from the richness of life that you have to be careful about. I recently removed my personal Facebook app from my phone. I still have an account that I can check in on regularly, but that was one of the apps that was kind of sucking me in. And so I took that off my phone. That was kind of one thing that I put to the side. I had timers on my phone for a little while when things got kind of bad during certain points in my life where apps will shut down when I get to a certain point. So I do recommend that too. And I'll be honest, that is something that, the overwhelming dependence on social media is something that I struggle with because I do want to establish more healthy habits. And I do feel like I have a long way to go in that area. But I also believe that social media can be a microphone and a force for good. And I do feel an obligation to speak out in certain respects too, on behalf of injustice, on behalf of, serving the children, serving teachers better. I think that is so important too. But those boundaries definitely I do need to keep in check, and that's actually a goal of mine in 2021 is to try to establish more healthy habits.
Well, speaking, Brooke, of 2021, we would love to turn you loose, speaking about what you see in education and for and educators this year. And of course, last year, whatever word you want to, call it a disruption, but there's been an obvious change, of course, in a lot of the methods that we're using to connect and work with students. So we'd love to just turn you loose and give you a chance to speak into that, either just about education, could be for educators, or even, what you foresee with students in this coming year.
Absolutely. So 2020, I will say, in my experience, in my career of teaching, was the hardest year that I've seen to connect with all over the world. It's almost been this dark cloud over what we know is best for students, and we're not able to teach the way we know is best for students this year. And that has been really difficult. Combining that with, family difficulties and trying to, serve their own families, teachers trying to serve their own families has been a lot. So quite simply, 2021, I just want to bring a lot less stress for teachers, a lot more joy, getting back to the things that we love about learning and teaching, more play, more hands-on experiences, more collaborating with students. I do think, especially now moving forward, that we have to place a more significant emphasis on social emotional learning and supporting the mental and physical health of our students through whether it is counseling, whether it's additional teachers. Small class sizes is something that a lot of schools have gotten to have this year that they haven't ever had in their teaching career, and just the ability to, but I do think overall students and teachers and really everyone is going to need a lot more love and support next year. And having all of those tools in place, all of those resources and people to help them, I think is going to be more important now than ever.
Yeah.
We're 100% with you on that, Brooke. One of the favorite questions we get to ask on the interview is, if you could talk to your middle school self or your high school self, what's a piece of advice that you would want to share?
Oh, my super awkward middle school self. I wish I had a picture that I could flash up. Middle school. Whoo. Oh my. And I have to say, this is kind of a tough question because, and I kind of narrowed it down to, I always kind of have struggled with anxiety in my life at different times of my life, but I think especially in middle school and high school, I'm an overthinker by nature. So in middle school, I was overthinking absolutely everything and worrying a lot. And I think the people that you spend time thinking, if they're thinking about you or what people think about you, is just such a waste of energy and a waste of space. And I wish I could have told my middle school self that none of that really matters, that all these things that you are terrified of or, worried about or what people think of you, they're not going to happen. They're all in your head. And I think that's good advice for adults too, that, that's something that, you got to push that anxiety aside and be in the here and now and be grateful for what you have.
Oh, that's good. Someone was just asking me, Brooke, yesterday about my word, about wholehearted. And what I said to them is I said, and I'm picking on myself just a little bit here, but, I was talking about how, we spend more time, either being concerned or worried about something that already either happened or has not yet happened and probably never will. So that being the future. So it's either like living in the past or the future. And I got to be honest, I think I find myself my headspace more in the future rather than just thinking about this day, this moment. And you said it earlier in the interview, but we're not going to get it perfect, but if we can just make a little bit of progress, that can make all the difference, and just learn how to be content in ourselves. It's really good. Brooke, we love to ask each of our dreamers and doers and give them an opportunity to share for 1 minute. We call it just our dreamer and doer link. And so it's a chance for you to take 1 minute and be able to really share whatever is on your heart that would encourage either our big dreamer or doer or even both that are out there. I think Carolyn has her stopwatch. Brooke, I feel you are definitely prepared for this. Are you ready?
I talk really fast. I don't know if I'm going to make it the whole minute. We'll see.
That means we're just going to have to take lots of notes during the 60 seconds. All right, ready, set, and go.
So kiddos, one thing that I have noticed over the past year especially is that your generation is going to change the world. The things that you have shown me that you are capable of over this past year, speaking out, doing that in this world, it makes me so proud to be witness to you and to be your teacher as you were growing up in this world. My daughter is only 9, and just seeing the compassion and empathy in her heart, and can't wait to see the service that she is going to give this world. I see that in you too, and just know that we're all the way behind you. One of my favorite Bible quotes is, "Let us not become weary in doing good. For at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." That's Galatians 6-9. And I have the privilege of helping both kids and teachers with my teaching position and my business. And the rewards on my part have been too many to count. You guys have this microphone with social media and just with the world in general. Use it for good. Do the most good and help the most people with the time that you have on this earth. And you can't go wrong. You will always find happiness. And find in your heart that spark, wherever it is, that will serve others in some way, and get to work, turning it into reality. And if you're lucky, you might get to turn it into a career too.
That was so awesome.
Damn.
Love that last minute link, Brooke. Thank you for just encouraging and speaking directly to the students. I agree with you. They're amazing.
Oh my goodness. Just so proud. And so many of mine are, like, as a college, or beyond. Some of them are teachers now, and just, you have no idea. They're always going to be our kids, and we will always be your biggest fans.
Love that. Well, Brooke, thanks
I feel
for
like
sharing
you
your
just gave
story.
I feel like you just gave us a graduation speech and card. And now let's go change the world in 2021. Brooke, we're going to give you a quick break, and then we're going to bring you back for a question. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Awesome. Carolyn, as promised, that was inspiring and challenging and motivational and encouraging.
Oh, yes. I love that. That was so fun. Michael, what was one of your big takeaways?
Down, we just have I would love to. A lot of takeaway for me, especially after coming off of that last 1 minute. But I want to talk about social media and what Brooke had to share there. And I thought it was so good. I mean, let's my hand. I think give people a hard time about talking constantly about how much they spend time in front of phones. But the last time, I stopped touching and I see adults staring at their screens and their phones. And so I really loved how Brooke was just being transparent and vulnerable, with us. That it's a goal for her this year to be able of her social media accounts, but to figure out, some ways that she might be able to spend less time. So her family, kids, working with students virtually, I thought was really, really powerful. So a good check for me that I'll be thinking through after this interview. What about you?
So for me, there are, of course, a few things I could talk about, but I love just her, even in that last minute, sharing that spark, right? Find that spark in that way that inspires you to help and impact other people. And that way it doesn't feel like work. I think that's really neat. And even if it doesn't get to be, say, your career, your job, is to find ways to do that within your job, like find that way to impact others. I really love that.
Yeah, no, so good. Well, let's bring Brooke back, and we have a couple of questions for her. Brooke, you came back so quick. I love technology.
I know. It's
Brooke, isn't it so good? And we asked you earlier on just to talk about just what life was like growing up, and you mentioned your sister. Mm-hmm. And you talked about just how school just seemed to come so natural and easy for her. I know we have students that are watching and listening right now that have siblings. I'm just curious, how did you find, and I don't know if it would be like the word contentment, but were you ever just challenged with the place that she was at in life and that you had to work so much harder? Like, how did you just find yourself to be just okay, with that? And I just asked that question because I know that we have, a lot of students that will fall into the comparison trap,
Absolutely.
wishing that they were.
My parents were always really good about encouraging me to find my own voice and my own passions. And even though I did a lot of the same things that she did, of course, I still emulate her. I wanted to be like her, but I think that was only pressure that I put on myself. I don't think my parents ever made me feel that I had to be just like her. And they also knew that and saw how hard I worked to get to certain levels. And even though I might not necessarily get her same ACT score, I may make up for that in leadership or in service projects or in other ways that might not necessarily have anything to do with grades. And that can lead you to success in different ways. And I think my parents kind of saw that. And, she got an academic scholarship in college and I got a leadership scholarship. So we had different strengths in different ways, but to me, I was always okay with it. There was different pieces that I enjoyed the work. That feeling that my hard work made a difference and paid off, like I said, ended up fueling me for the future. So I hope that answers your question. I always just kind of knew that I'd have to work a little harder, and it didn't. I was okay with that. Most people do. So
no, that is so good. And no, I'm even really I'm almost asked that a little selfishly because I'm taking some notes here. I really appreciate just the leadership of your parents. I'm sure it wasn't perfect, but they did a lot of things right. If they wrote a book, it would definitely be one that I would want to read as I'm working with students, of course, at Love Works, and I have 3 little ones on my own.
There's the bar they have set is very high with it. And my mom is still really very honest with me. She's like, yes, we did all these things, but I wasn't running my own business. I was working part-time, the world, we didn't have social media. She's honest with me, and the pressures of our external world now are very different than what they were when we were young. So, but they absolutely could write the book on what to do right, for sure.
That's good. Tell them I would be the first one to purchase on Amazon.
Brooke, we've got an audio question for you from one of our students. Let's play it.
Hi, my name's Aiden and I'm 16 years old. My dream is to someday become a psychologist so I can help other people work and help on their mental health. My question for Brooke is, how do you organize your time so that you balance the things that you need to do with the things that you love to do?
Aiden, that is a wonderful question. And I have to say how proud and excited I am that you're going into the field of psychology, because we need great people like you in our world. My minor was in child psychology. It's more of a kind of a passion of mine. I'm super interested in psychology. But as I mentioned before, now more than ever, it is so important that our kids get the mental health support that they need and the social emotional support that they need. But as far as balancing it all, it has been an ongoing process. That the perfect balance of work, life, and home is a little bit of a mix. You feel like you're putting a little bit too much into work, or maybe you're spending a little bit too much time at home and you're not quite giving enough. And finding little things that you can change about your lifestyle, leaving your answering it during a certain time. Those are little things that can help you kind of set that boundary. Also, my husband is my partner in crime. He is my teammate. We have to depend on each other and work together, especially with 2 young children, or we would not make it through the day, especially during the pandemic. And that is something that is so important too, is having the support of, it doesn't have to be, a significant other. It can be family members to support and help you during different times of your life. But I will say that it's not something that you're going to snap your fingers your first year in your career and it's going to happen. My first years of teaching, I was there till 6, 7 o'clock at night because I was able to do that. That was something, as a young teacher, time management was not quite there yet. And it took, a little bit in the evenings, and then I could have more time and more energy for my families. But it is so important to be able to try to leave that work at work and go home and be present. And work before play is kind of, a phrase that people say a lot, but work can consume you if you let it, and it can take a lot of joy out of life. So try to leave that work at work if you can, but it will take time to develop those healthy habits.
Brooke. Right. It's real. It's honest. Thank you for encouraging our young dreamer and doer, and of course our audience as well. Brooke, this has been a real delight for us. We appreciate you so much. You really are a superhero. You continue to be one. You know, for your family, for your current students that you're working with, and the hundreds, if not thousands, you know, of educators just around the world that you've helped to equip and to make us better today.
Well, thank you so much and thank you so much for all that you do for the kids in Norman. I'm so proud that you are here and serving the kids in so many different innovative ways. And I've heard nothing but amazing things about LoveWorks, and it's been exciting to see it grow over the years. So
Thank
and
you.
I know you saw it early on, so we received that word, and we will do our very best to live up to that mandate. Thank you.
It's a treasure here in Norman, and we're so lucky to have you.
We appreciate it. Thank you, Brooke. Carolyn, it is all you. That's a tough act to follow, isn't it?
That is a tough act to follow, but I do have some exciting news.
Let's let the ball drop and the fireworks explode. We're gonna close out today, Carolyn, by talking about so speaking of opportunities to be equipped at LoveWorks, we have an opportunity, something that we've never done before. We've typically held in-person training and development opportunities for a lot of our volunteers and professionals of the community, but now we have a virtual event that we're getting ready to host next Saturday. So tell us about that.
For sure. So throughout 2020, and even to this day, we can see how important our leadership is, right? We're looking towards our leadership for guidance. And so this is an event all about building your leadership so that you can effectively lead the people, whoever you're around. So if you're a volunteer here at LoveWorks, maybe you're a parent who's leading their family, maybe you're an educator leading a classroom. But we online virtual event that is not going to be like any virtual event you've ever attended. In fact, it's hosted on a platform called Remo, which simulates an event floor. And you're at a table and you get to go to whatever table you want to and chat with whoever is there as well. And so we're expecting this to be a great turnout of students, of educators who wants to build on their leadership so that they're a more effective leader in their community. And so with this, we've got a really amazing speakers that are lined up. You see, of course, not saying that me and Michael are the best or the most amazing, but we are going to be there. We also get to have some really great friends. Sarah Kirk, she is the counselor specialist for the State Department of Education in Oklahoma. She's going to be talking about how to lead this younger generation. Brooke Lara, he's an amazing, he's a founder of a nonprofit. He wrote a book and he's a sophomore in college. Real Tech, Victoria Rosinia, it's going to be awesome. We're going to start. We're really, really excited about these breakout sessions and what they're going to offer and help you live more mindfully, but also live with your priorities, how you want them. So I'm excited about that.
Sign me up. I would be curious though, I had to chuckle in your first intro to that by saying an event unlike you've ever attended before virtually. If Brooke Brown attends, I wonder if she's going to say that, because I think she's probably been on about every virtual platform.
The bar will try to measure up to, is to make a really great event.
Well, thanks for talking about that. And just so you all know, that event is just not about LoveWorks. We don't consider ourselves the experts. We've been in this, not the longest, but for almost 10 years now. And we realize we are not the experts, and it truly does take a village. And so we're going to bring in a few members of that village that we hope it will be able to, dreamship.org, where you can also learn more about LoveWorks and other digital resources that we have available for you.
For sure. And just a reminder, real leaders, they don't blend in, but they stand out.
Dream big.
And do your dream.
Bye, everybody.